welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we talk about a certain genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be back.
We have Adam Vitale.
Hello.
And Chowman Wu.
How's it going?
We might hear from James later. Our current prevailing theory is that he has overslept, but we don't know. So maybe he'll pop in, maybe he won't. We figured we'll just go ahead and get started and we'll roll him in if he shows up. But yeah, it's the second podcast in February. We have been underwater in terms of the amount of games that have released. We spent a long time last episode talking about two major releases in Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Persona 3 Reload. I think we talked about both games for about an hour each, and that was a week after Infinite Wealth released in the very, very tail end of January. Me and Josh spent over an hour talking about that game. So I know a lot of us, including us on staff and likely several of our listeners, are still working our way through several of those games, as well as, of course, looking ahead to the middle and the end of the month with some releases big and small. We have, of course, the big data dump and state of play information for the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We have some other smaller scale titles coming out of Don't Nod and that other studio that we talked about last week that I forget.
Fool's Theory.
There we go. Fool's Theory. But as we kind of closed out last week's episode, we did kind of say that if there is a gap in February in terms of like a cadence of releases, this week is kind of it. Like this is the one time that we don't have a major release coming out, even though we just were underwater with like 3 of them.
This is the relaxed week for everyone to actually like start playing their games and not worry about any new like RPG releases. This is where everyone's like, okay, I have Infinite Wealth that I need to get to, or Relink or Persona 3 Reload. Like, they're not crazy like us, so they're like, okay, I actually need to like breathe a little this month.
I did follow up. I haven't touched Infinite Wealth for a while since it came out, but I did read a little bit about people playing that DLC dungeon, the big swell that I didn't want to pay for because it's
Me too.
whatever your thoughts are on there. I have heard that it does have its own, like, I don't know how I feel about this. What I've read is that it has its own story. And I've heard it's really enjoyable. It's not super grindy like the like that true Millennium Tower of Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon, Yakuza Like a Dragon. So it's like apparently it's a pretty good piece of content. It's got its own individual like story cutscenes and things like that. It's like, okay, that seems neat, but also you got to pay extra for it. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's got kind of. I mean, it's not like core story relevant. It's more like a slice of life sort of like side story from what I hear.
That's I'm saying this, not having witnessed it myself. And you could say like, well, then it's just like any other like DLC episode of another game, only it released alongside the main game. So it's like, I don't know what I feel about that, but I've heard it's fun and interesting. So maybe some down the road I'll end up playing through it.
That's something we can always play sometime later in the year. It's not an immediate priority for us.
And then I do know that you've been playing a lot of the I think you had touched your toes into it when we talked about it last, but a lot of the relink post game proud mode, basically post main story, because we talked about how that's really kind of a tutorial in a lot of ways. I don't know, you've shared in our Discord channel the progress that you and your team.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done with relink in terms of like progression and post game. Like I saw everything there was to see, and like pretty much like the end game is just grinding a lot for depending on like how much you want to get completion out of like the game, right? You can grind up like find everyone's like final weapon because it's RNG drop in the final boss in like the hardest proud mode. You can find like rare sigils through like 2 other gacha means to like build up your character or other characters. So it's really up to you when you decide when you want to like stop that grind, because there's nothing really left in the game after you finish that final proud fight, and there's like no like there's the upcoming Lucilius like end game boss fight coming next month, but other than that there's nothing in the game that like would really warrant you to really gear up right at this moment for that. It's really up for your self-satisfaction whether you want to do that or not, right?
I saw you describe it as, unlike the mobile game, this game doesn't have a character gotcha, but it does have, and you like listed like 3 or 4 other different like
Yeah,
type of systems.
pretty
Is,
much.
is that is that how the mobile game works? Is that it's character gotcha, or is it weapon, or is it both?
You basically get the weapon from polling, and if you get the weapon, then you get that character. So let's say that you pulled the Murderess, which is Catalina's main weapon. You pull that weapon, you get the SSR version of her, basically, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
you're-
Yeah, but
and
how the original like browser mobile game is like totally different than the way that its weapon system works because
you
that
equip
game also
10
has like
weapons. It's very
yeah,
convoluted. You equip 10 weapons, and you basically add up the skill from each weapon, and that's how your character will roll, like how strong they are.
it's
And
called
the thing
a
is,
weapon grid system. So it's like and it gets very convoluted because it's like different elemental weapon grids like per like character team, right? So
and like recently, like I think within the last 2 years, it's like was it they added new bosses, but people were just kind of tired of the weapon system because they could only equip so many weapons. So they added 3 more slots. So now you have 13 weapons in
oh
your
gee, I
arsenal
didn't know about the additional weapon slots. Yeah, ooh, okay, yeah.
for these new raids because like half your weapon slot is take up like by 5 mandatory weapons because they're way too strong.
Uh-huh.
Like the Lucilius weapon is one of them. You would always equip that. It's like there's no reason why you're not to.
Hmm.
And then your grid's kind of flexible from there, right? So eventually people figured, oh wait, I always need at least 5 of these weapons or something of these other grand weapons, and then then the rest is like, oh, I don't really have much room to play with. So I guess that's why they made all these new battles. It's like, oh, there's 3 more weapon slots for you to play with. You know,
Well, the long story short is we should all be thankful that Relink didn't have the weapon grid system from the original because
it's super convoluted. You try to introduce anybody on how to play it, they would not fucking understand it. They would spend hours asking in Discord questions. Even my cousin, who was very addicted to the game, got the blue skin, spent 2 days asking questions. I could read all his lines asking, "How does this work?" It was like, and they will like read through this wall of text up you were responding to him, explaining shit to him. That's how convoluted it
yeah, I
is.
mean that's just how some games are, especially in long lifespans. Like I have a lot of friends who are into Path of Exile, and if I were to like try to touch that game, they would never hear the end of me asking questions about like how you play that, you know?
And then I think, Adam, you've been playing a little bit of just other Persona games in kind of your backlog in this week because you're working on a February release coverage
Yeah.
later, but you had a gap. Okay,
Yep.
so and then the first game that we have listed here in our little like interim games talk section is a game that I heard about a lot about over the last week, but I honestly don't know anything about it except the title. Like this is I'm literally coming in at ground zero on this.
Yeah, yeah.
And the game here, well, I know one nugget of information. The game here, I don't know if it's topical or not, but it's what we have listed first arbitrarily, is Helldivers 2. And all I know about this game is that apparently it is a Sony published game that's done very well on Steam. So I don't know if it was like released to both platforms just day and date. That's all I know. That's all I've like read through the grapevine. I don't know what sort of game it is, but I know that Josh has been playing it. So we have Helldivers 2 listed here. Uh I don't know what this game is.
Yeah, okay. So
Educate me.
remember like well over 10 years ago, do you remember a little game called Magica on PC? It
No.
was it was like basically a co-op like wizards and then you kind of input your own spell and the game kind of had like this cult classic fame of like because there's like really funny friendly fire throughout this whole four-player co-op adventure where you can kind of like have to manually input your magic spells and so forth. So back in the day like Magica was very big and that was the first game from Arrowhead Game Studios who went on to create Helldivers and now Helldivers 2. They had a few games in between, but for the most part, they're a studio that's only made 5 games since their debut in 2011, which is Magica. Then there was like Showdown Effect, Gauntlet, which the 2014 Gauntlet, which wasn't really that great, and then and then Helldivers 1 was 2015, and then no releases until Helldivers 2. So they're pretty like there's not like a constant release of new releases coming in from this dev studio. So the first Helldivers was really beloved because it was a very unique take on like that 4-player shooter co-op genre. It had an isometric view,
I
And
actually sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
I actually did play that 2014 Gauntlet. I was like, "Did I play
uh,
that?" Yes, I did. Anyways,
yeah,
continue.
yeah, and a lot of the thing about Helldivers and even going back to the magic route is think about Helldivers like wizards. They are troops. You have a gun and you have a secondary, gun. But like most of like the things that you're doing in battle to assist you in battle are called stratagems, and you can think of these stratagems as magic spells. And to access these stratagems, you have to go to your stratagems list, and then you actually have to input like arrow keys. Well, you can bind it to arrow keys or like whatever buttons or whatever, but you have to input a sequence, whether it's like left, down, down, up, right, left, or something like that. Or it could be like that, or it could be like just down, down, left, left. It'll show you on the screen, and then whatever input you put into it, you'll get that magic or stratagem. And of course, you need to have these equipped onto you before the mission. And then once you use them, they have a cooldown. So one of these strategies could be, hey, send me down a grenade launcher that I can use. So you input the button sequence for that. They'll send you down a grenade launcher. It's yours to use. One of these could be like an orbital precision airstrike. So think of that like a big fireball spell. That's an AoE spell. So you input that, and then you have like a marker that you can throw. You throw it out, and then like after a few seconds, boom! Anything that was like near that marker is obliterated, pretty much. So that's kind of like the where Helldivers separates itself from the rest of the genre, because you have like it's very meticulous, even though it looks like an arcade shooter. It's a very meticulous type of game. It is also a game that's pretty punishing in terms of like there's like full on friendly fire, not just of you like shooting your other teammates, but also it can be things like deployable turrets. You call that a turret, you better make sure you're not in its way, because it'll rip you through
I have a
shred.
question. So I've seen
Yes.
a few reviews called this game hilarious.
Yeah.
Where does that stem
It-
from?
So it's hilarious for several reasons, right? One of the reasons, feeding into what I just said, is like it has a big emphasis on like ragdoll physics. So like if one of your friends like calls down an airstrike and you were right by it and like they didn't call it out, you'll just see your character just flying up into the air, ragdolling, and they could like get like limb damage from that, and you'd have to like stim up and recover your health. It's just a lot of like um unintentional accidents for the most part. So, for example, a really recent example is I was playing with my friends the other day, and one of the things that's on my character is this laser drone. Um, and this laser drone is pretty aggressive about firing its laser to like any nearby bugs around me or any enemies. And it'll fire indiscriminately. So if you're in its way, you're getting damaged. So one of my friends was off in the distance, kind of like a good far away from me. One of his stratagems or magic spells was this calling down this orbital laser. It's really, really good for taking down like really, really armored enemies, and it's very, very useful. So he was about to, use it on like a nearby threat, but my laser drone was like kind of like all just going all over the place and like just barely nicked him. And because he got like stunned from it, he called down an orbital laser accidentally on top of him. So because of that little nick, his laser drone is just like frying him alive because of a really stupid accident. And
So
death in this
I get
game,
it, and like just sort
yeah,
of like this,
yeah,
organic multiplayer
right.
accident and shenanigans.
And,
Okay.
and it's like death is like expected. You have like like in Helldivers 2, you have like a respawn or reinforced limit of 20, and then after that it's down on a timer. It's on a based on a cooldown timer from then on, and you can only uh, get back people back into action one at a time. When usually, you'd be able to get multiple of them down back at the same time if you didn't have that cooldown timer. So the game, just like the original, is death is expected. It's like it's very hard like to not die in this game because you get pretty overwhelmed with like enemy numbers. in this game. And of course, the other reason like why people find this game hilarious is like the developers and of course the user base are very aware of like it's a parody of ultra nationalist um messages, right? That
It's
like
like it looks like Starship Troopers when I look at it.
exactly. So you're part of a elite squad, part of Super Earth, and they're spreading freedom and democracy to other planets filled with bugs and robot and Terminator like automaton. So all the messaging you see, it's like you're doing this for freedom and for democracy, the and all that sort of shenanigans. So the big shift here from Helldivers 1 to Helldivers 2 was, well, Helldivers 1 was an isometric game that you know you kind of oversaw the battlefield from like a top-down perspective. It's now a much more standardized third-person shooter perspective. So this kind of has interesting ramifications immediately. In the first Helldivers, everyone had to share the same screen in the sense that like you couldn't like drift away from each other. That you'd be rubber banded together to make sure that you're all always on the same screen in that top down view. In Helldivers 2, you could be as far apart from each other as you want, no matter where you are on like in the stage. So there's no like sort of like rubber banding together to like or it's incentive to like super stick together like in the first game because the game allows that. Um, and also a lot of people have been talking about like sort of the model of this game. Because I think one of the aside from like obviously this game has kind of like an infamous cheat engine called Game Guard, and Game Guard was very much used like in like early to mid aughts of like a lot of like Korean games. Like, think of um what was it, Maple Story? I believe Maple Story had this. I believe there's also some other Korean MMOs that had it, but a lot of Game Guard's reputation was from like its implementation of those like earlier titles, earlier MMOs in that market.
I think of Gunbound when I think of games.
Gunbound, yeah, Gunbound also uses
I'm
it.
pretty
Yeah.
sure Fantasy Star Online 2 does or used to use Game Guard.
Mhm. So I mean, yeah, it's a take it or like leave it situation in that case because it's a kernel level anti cheat, and while personally for me it's been working fine, I can understand people's hesitation to like have install Game Guard on their system because it's kernel level anti cheat, and you're taking out the developer's word, that they're not doing anything nefarious with it.
It
At
seems
least
like extremely invasive these days. So
yeah, and but kernel level anti cheat is like nothing new. Like you want to play Valorant, for example, or League of Legends. Like Riot has their own kernel level anti cheat software as well. So it's kind of it's getting to that point where it's like almost unavoidable. Unfortunately, for some of these big releases, I believe Call of Duty on PC also has some sort of like kernel level anti cheat because they're trying to combat cheaters and trying to preserve that experience. And to varying degrees, right? So it's one of those things like it sucks, but that's how it is. Um, but the other prevailing, thing that people have been talking about this, well, up to release and then its release, it's the first game was already sort of a games as a service, like it's kind of like it was in the early days, but this one obviously integrates like the modern understanding of what a games as a service game is. It's a full on games as a service. There's a lot of things being monetized in this game. But I think the way that they're implementing it isn't like the most awful way that like we've seen compared to other titles. So let's break down exactly how this works. The base game is $40 upfront. You want to play the game, pay $40. So yeah, you get into the door with $40. What sort of in-game monetization are you expecting? So there are there are currencies in the game and they're not all relevant. For example, there are things called requisitions that it's basically like uh money you get from completing missions, and you can use that to upgrade your ship that will give you new stratagems or like magic spells. So for example, if I want like new turrets or new support weapons, I only need those only need requisitions at like an in-game level, and you obviously get like level ups as the more you play the game, and that's all requisitions are used for in that. So there's no real life money payment in that exchange. Another currency are samples in the game, and these are used to upgrade your like passives for you. So there's like a common sample, a rare sample, and like an ultra rare or super sample or whatever. Um, and you collect these to unlock new passives that are like, hey, your turrets will have more ammo, or your turrets will have more health, or your support weapons will now have like more ammo when they deploy and you pick them up. Um, and those, once again, samples and unlocking these passives on through ship modules, there's no real money exchange there. Now, where gets complicated is there are two other currencies called medals and super credits. So, in the game, and this is one of the things I don't really like about the game, but this is how they decide to do their unlocks. In the game, you have a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, um, and like a booster. And a booster is like not like limited time. A booster is like, hey, when you deploy onto like a mission, you have all your ammo with you, so you have like 6 magazines instead of like 4 out of 6, like I normally would, and that applies party wide. Another booster that someone can have on them is like a little bit more health on your squad, and there's no real money exchange there. That's something that you just like unlock pretty much. Um, n- but you unlock these through things called war bonds, and war bonds. The best way to describe them are they're mini battle passes that are permanent. So what does that mean? Uh, for reference, right now there are two war bonds in the game. There's like the normal war bond, which everyone has access to when they buy the game for $40, and then there's another war bond that's like that people who have the $20 more expensive edition, who bought it $60, have access to that immediately. But people who have the $40 edition can either grind the currency called super credits to unlock that uh, without any more real money exchanges, or they could go to the in-game store to buy super credits to unlock that for like an additional $10 equivalent, because
And what
it's
does having
$10.
this battle pass get you?
So when you have a war bond, there are weapons, different grenades, different like capes, helmets, and like the helmets and capes are all cosmetic. The armor has a very little amount of like a minor effect on it. Like let's say like you'll take 50% less limb damage, or like you can throw grenades a little farther, which is not it's ostensibly trivial for these new armor things. You're usually getting it for the look of the armor, not necessarily for the effects, but it does factor into it. Um, but you can also like unlock like the items that unlock the boosters too, right? So to unlock the item that like gives you full ammo for the squad, that's you can obtain that through like the normal war bond in the game. But in order to unlock these items in the war bond, you have to obtain medals in the game. So, for example, um, a gun in the first page of a war bond could be 6 medals. A grenade might be 8 medals. A new cape might be 4 medals. A new thing for your nameplate might be 2 medals, and so forth. But you can only obtain medals by just completing missions successfully in it. And then after you spend a certain amount of medals, you can like get like have access to the next page of that war bond. So like on page 2, there might be like a cooler looking gun, a new cape, a new helmet. Um,
So can you just like buy medals with real money? Is that where the monetization comes in, or what?
so you cannot buy medals with real money. You can only buy super goods. So you can only buy the currency to unlock the access to the war bond, but you cannot buy the currency to actually buy the things in it. That's all obtained through playing it. Because super credits only get your foot into the door of opening access to the war bond like the warbond progression, but the actual medals that you get for completing missions, those are the things you actually spend to like unlock things inside the warbond that you
Yeah, I got
you
it.
gain your access to.
I'm following.
So
Makes
that
sense.
yeah, it's dumb games as a service bullshit, right? That's how the model is, and the thing that's like annoying about it is like they're gonna release new war bonds every month. They said like on the second Thursday of like every month, and so basically, if you want to gain like new access to like new weapons or new grenades or like anything like that, like all the strategic stuff, that's all outside of the war bond for now. I believe later down the road they said they might put strategics in war bonds, but for now it's completely separate. But if you want to like try out like new weapons and stuff like that, you'll have to invest. So not only do you have to like get the war bond and like spend either real money or like earn the currency to unlock that war bond, but also you don't have access to it immediately. You have to play a lot of the game to like get the currency, the metal currency, to even like unlock it in the first place. And some of these can get pretty expensive, like one of the like rifles I unlocked the other day was like 80 medals, and like that took a good chunk of time. That took a few hours to kind of get that amount of currency. Be like, okay, hopefully this gun's good. Hopefully I didn't like waste how many hours to see if this gun's good or not. You know, um, and that feels bad. That kind of feels bad to just like, okay, I want to like experiment with stuff, but I'm gonna have to really grind for it to experiment with stuff. And like the moment to moment gameplay is fun, but it's repetitive as well because well, it's any game is fun with friends, but if you look at it on paper, there's not really a lot of like content that's like really came without the gate. Like for example, ever since its launch on like Wednesday or Thursday, we're still stuck on the same four planets. There's two for the bugs and two for the automatons. And like with each difficulty level, I unlocked up until like the one step below the final difficulty level. It's like impossible. And like you kind of see like I don't know if you unlock if you see new creatures per difficulty level, but definitely when you ramp up difficulty, you'll see some new enemy types, and like obviously the enemy population is a lot more. It inflates a lot, and it gets really tough. Um, and it's just like it doesn't feel great because like it's very intense and it gets really I don't know, it gets tedious because you're kind of doing missions you've seen already, except it's just like you've except there's more bugs or more annoying mobs to deal with in them, like yeah. But like the mission types, I've pretty much seen all the mission types already, you know and I've been to these two planets or these four stages that they had, and it's like okay, they kind of mixed up, a little bit of like how this mission goes, but it's something I've already seen, and I feel like just the content that they've launched with is fine, but they need to really start adding new stuff in fast because right now I feel like it's kind of dried up for me at this point. I've kind of I've unlocked the things I wanted to, and like have a good idea of like how I want to play, and there's nothing really driving me forward to like continue playing a lot unless I want to grind mindlessly to unlock other war bond stuff, which is something you're just feeding more into these middle mini battle passes. And at least the one nice thing about these war bonds is they're not limited time things. They're all permanent.
So I'm gonna be
So
honest, I didn't even consider that, and I
yeah,
don't really play these games, but I know people
right,
have discussed that before, where you have to get it done within like this season or whatever, and then
right,
they'll move on to the
yeah.
next one.
The only thing that's like on a timer is like this superstore where there's like four or five like cosmetic items that you can get for super credits, and they like switch out like every 4 hours, I think, or something like that. But that's it. That's the only thing that's like really on a timer. Everything else is like it's there, And the fun thing about the superstore is like there's like fake Amazon reviews underneath them, so you just see people giving it 5 stars. This fucking helmet like saved my life. It's the best. So, but it's a fun like mindless game with friends. It's fun. Shooting down robots and bugs and like kind of getting a feel of like how you want to like build your character, right? Because for me, like I have a laser drone and have like three different turrets, and probably not the most optimal thing, but I sure have a lot of fun with it. But there's like more creative like weapons, for example. Like there's some weapons where it requires two people to operate. Where like there's like a recoilless like rocket launcher where like you need one person firing it and another dedicated person like kind of feeding the ammo into your launcher, stuff like that. And I think the thing that's really, uh, I don't know how they're gonna do this, but I feel like there just needs to be m- m- faster traversal options because there's a lot of like missions right now, especially in the higher difficulties, where you're just like traversing all across stages on foot, and it's like pretty slow. And like they had vehicles in the first one, and that was cool. And I know they're teasing rideable mechs again, which was in the first game. They're teasing rideable mechs again in this game, which is like it'll come later. Who knows how when that'll hit? But it's just like it kind of feels so tedious to kind of just like traverse through terrain from like one mission objective to the next. It just takes. I feel like it's too slow at the and I have a lot of like nitpicks of like enemy design and encounters and stuff like that on the higher difficulties, but I know it's in early days, something they'll work on over time, and obviously listen to community feedback. That's the nature of these games. So things current conditions right now will probably change because that's how games as a service goes. And like it's a solid game. It's not like I'm not gonna say it's gonna change your life or it's like the best game ever, but it's a good time with friends if you're looking for like just like a really fun shooter to just kind of chill out with.
Yeah, I know it's not really quite in our wheelhouse, but it's always kind of fun just to have, those goofy, hilarious moments like Adam said. And with a game that really just encourages that sort of interaction
Yeah.
in an organic way.
Hmm.
And apparently it's been doing really well for Sony on PC, even though the Steam reviews have been bringing up the concerns with the Game Guard.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that definitely it's all valid. I'm glad that they are finding success with this. I just hope they earnestly listen to like what people are saying about the game. I think I'm at this point in the game now where like a lot of people haven't really touched yet, and I'm hoping that like as time goes on, more of the game's problems that I have issue with at the moment will be more echoed out throughout the community once people get there.
And the other release for this week is a game that we did bring up in the last podcast or two as a major update to one of those games as a service titles. And that is Honkai Star Rail. Of course, that released worldwide last year. And just in the last week, we got the major update 2.0. And I know that this takes place in like a galactic hotel. It has some new characters, but that's why we have Chow here, who's actually gone and played 2.0 update. You've always been kind of a little bit critical on Hoyoverse about like the speed at which they update. At least Genshin. I don't know if Star Rail has been better or worse supported in that regard, but in between you writing guides, massive, undertakings for Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Persona 3 Reload, you've been playing Honkai Star Rail 2.0. So just let us know what your how that's going and what your thoughts are on that update for that game.
So I think this update's solid. Is we finally got to the new planet. We finally get to go to Penacony, which is the place that they were originally going to, but they got sidetracked to go to the Lofu Alliance or whatever it was, the kind of like the Oriental planet that they were in the last, you know, for almost a year. This is like their original destination. So basically, this organization called the Family invited them to come in, and it just becomes this whole weird, like dream world where it's kind of like a blend of reality and dream. It's a very strange way to kind of say it. The story is actually like pretty long. You won't be able to like binge through it without, I don't know, like it takes like about 5 hours to complete the story, I would say. takes a while.
Is that like comparable to like what a Genshin or
I think
or
this is.
from a game
I
would
think
get?
it's sustainable. I mean, it's like we only get like piece of it. It's not even like the whole thing. So from what we get, I think I think that's good. You know, but yeah. So you get invited to go there, and then you have like these like weird plot threads that are hanging with a carry-on, or she's called Yomi in the Japanese version. She looks like the Raiden Shogun. They call it the May and XP or whatever. So there's a lookalike, and they basically tells the main character like, "Oh, you got to remember what happened over here."
Oh, one
And
thing, can I interrupt you? Is this character supposed to be the same character between Genshin and Honkai, or no?
no, they look they look similar, but they're
Okay,
not the
so
same character.
I saw internet drama on this, and we all know internet drama.
Okay.
Apparently, people. Okay, this actually gets sort of serious. They cast an English voice actor for this. I honestly don't remember who it was, but it wasn't the same voice actor as Raiden, and people were
Yeah,
upset about that.
I
That
think the reason
they
why
were
they got
saying they
different.
should have the same voice because they're more or less the same character. That's what I
Yeah,
saw.
because in the Japanese version they do. They got
Okay, but the
was it
English version
Miyuki
is not the same
Sawashiro in
voice.
both, but in English it's like you get Allegra Clark for Carry On, and was it for Raiden Shogun you got and Yako, which is different voice actors. I think the reason why they got different actresses is because there's two different recording studios, so they probably have a different cast for these
Yeah.
members already. That's my guess. But
Anyways,
like not
you
like
mentioned this character, and I saw this drama from the periphery about the voice actor being different in English. And like, what's that
Yeah,
about? Anyways,
yeah, that's weird drama. If they're not like the exact same character, then like I that's kind of a weird thing to get hung up on from an
I,
outsider
like
perspective.
I could see why they're getting hung up on it. It's like imagine you're
Hmm.
watching like your anime and you see I don't know Goku. It's like in one Goku, it's like oh this is not voiced by Sean. I forgot his last name, and
Shamel.
then the other one, and and then the other one's like voiced by this other guy, and you're like, and that's kind of like what they're being upset about, in my opinion, right? Which is
I mean,
kind of
and not knowing the story of the game, but if it's meant to be like this cameo where like it's story relevant in a way, I could see that. If someone like if there's like a mysterious character like I don't know Trails into Reverie and they voice T with a different voice or something, but like in this game, it seems like it's just kind of like a fun throwback. Like they're recognizing that the character looks similar, so they had the same actress do it in Japanese.
but some
Maybe
of them it's like they could be connected. People say the welt.
I feel like it gets to that weird situation where like people feel like they're kind of making their own headcanon in their mind and then they're acting upon it because that's what they already decided was like fact in their mind. You
Okay,
know?
I went to the Allegra Clark's Twitter, and she mentioned. I'm gonna post it in our chat here.
Okay.
So we're
She
on the
actually
podcast.
made it a bigger deal than it actually was. She just sort of
Oh,
mentioned that some people were upset, and like it wasn't not really a controversy, but
let me go check this out.
so yeah. She originally called it a controversy about her casting, and then then she says this is spun out of hand. I have not been harassed. A little bit of controversy. There are some negative comments I've seen online, and that's about
I
it.
think the problem is like some content creators blow things out of proportion, which is
Yeah.
kind of like what the problem with the Hoyoverse
Hmm.
community is. Like, I think a lot of people are familiar with these things. Like, everything's been blown out of proportion than what it is.
Really,
Uh,
content creators blowing out of proportion. That has never happened this week concerning Xbox. Nope.
oh yes, I am gonna stop buying Xbox product. How dare you, Microsoft? Like, you're just buying a PC. That's it.
Oh, but
But anyways, that's kind
yeah.
of like what happened over there. It's pretty shitty situation, I guess. But you know what's kind of funny about Allegra Clark? You
Hmm.
know, was it in Persona 3? She voices Mitsuru in that
Yeah,
as
she's
well,
the new
right?
Mitsuru, right? Right.
Yeah, you know what's funny? She's in the Japanese voice, she's Riza Taneda. I mean, Riza Rie Tanaka, right?
Mhm.
And for Grand Blue, the Rosetta is also Ria Tanaka, and the English voice is Allegra Clark as well.
You see that sometimes where like an English actress will commonly take roles for the same Japanese roles. Not always,
like,
but you do see that
not always,
occasionally.
but
It makes
it's
sense because
awesome.
they usually have like a similar register that similar
I find it's
character
kind of
styles.
funny. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, you kind of go in, you wake up, and then they want you to go to this planet, and you meet this asshole named Adventure Teen or whatever his name is, and basically he lets you to have his room to check in from this hotel. Because in the Pentaconi world is that you need to go to sleep in order to go into the world, right? And this whole entire world is kind of like, I think it was supposed to be, the backstory was it's supposed to be a prison for people for IPC, but they turned this dream into like a reality that they love. So it became like this place that people love to spend their time in, you know, to forget the problems. I think the thing is kind of blurry around here because they didn't really explain things too well. I think it's like if you die in this dream world, it's like what happens to you in real life? It's like do you just lose your memories or what happened, or do you die? So I think that's the part that gets a little vague. Um, but anyways, they have like the this part you meet this girl who's supposed to be a stowaway, and this is like kind of like the wholesome moment of it, and you basically go on like this little date with her, and it's really sweet actually. And this date is hilarious. This is one part where you're like she asked you that she was gonna take you out for dinner, and she's gonna pay for it. And you have like all these options. You could either like spend all her money, or you don't spend all her money. But if you spend all her money, it's hilarious. She's like very sad. It's like, oh, you have good taste. She's like, oh man,
What, she gets sad that you exploit her generosity?
yeah, basically. She has like, I think she
Well,
gave you all her budget, and she basically bought everything. And she's like, oh no,
she was
right?
offering, so I mean, you can't be blamed.
Yeah, if you didn't spend all of it, she's like, oh yeah, it's like I love the rolls here. They're so good. It's like that, but they're so expensive, so I only buy once a day. But if you like spend all your money, it's just like, oh man, it's like you have a really big appetite.
I am regretting
man.
this.
But yeah, this wholesome character, very wholesome. I think they got the. I think a lot of people are hype about this storyline because they got the. Was it the Honkai Wholesome writer
The
in
wholesome
here?
writer.
Yeah, his
Wholesome
name is
writer.
Xiao Ji. I think that's what they call him. It's like you'll love it. He's the wholesome guy.
Okay,
Right?
well, how did this come about? How did this person get this reputation as the wholesome writer in the community?
He is the infamous dude that kills off all the cast in Honkai. If you
Yeah,
play
that's very
Honkai,
wholesome. The guy who kills off
a
the
lot of people,
cast.
a lot of people that play the Honkai Impact Third, he's known as this guy who bait and switches people with this very sweet story that ends up very sadistic at the end, and the characters all end up dying. So people call him the wholesome writer, and he is on board. And now people are terrified of the cast
So
because
it's tongue in cheek wholesome.
so at the end of the
Whenever you
story,
have a character who's a little cinnamon roll and you think you gotta protect them, nothing bad's gonna happen to them, they're gonna like die a gruesome death.
probably.
Okay.
So that's what this guy is. He's in there, and at this storyline, there are people dying. It's like, oh, it's like this person's dead. It's like, what do we do? And it pulls like this whole kind of like what's that game called? Danparanga? Was it? It kind of pulls out like one of
Danganronpa?
those. It kind of pulls off one of those kind of situation. You're like, oh shit! It's like that person we just met just died. It's like, what the hell do we do here? And this kind of sets a lot of things up in this game, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. You know, like. Like I don't know. It's like you don't get kind of these stories these days. So with the Honkai, um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So this new update is it like did you complete its story yet, or are you still going through it?
I'm going through it very slow,
Okay,
but like
got it.
it's like all you know at the end of this story is everyone's a liar. You can't trust anybody.
Hmm.
It's like even the wholesome character you meet lied about one detail with you. So it's like everyone lied about something. So at the end, it's like who do you trust? It's like nobody, right? So
Okay. And with
like,
the with this 2.0 update, did they like besides this new storyline, did they like tweak like or add any new features or system overhauls or anything like that to the
New
game?
system overhauls. They streamline the gearing. It's much more refined, I would say.
Yeah.
So one of the things with the gearing is like you sometimes when you want to upgrade this material or this relic, you could just jump to like what level do you want to upgrade that relic to? It's like, oh, I can upgrade it to +3, so I know it's junk instead of like manually upgrading to
Oh,
+3.
so yes, okay, so it's not like one by one. You can just like actually just jump to it.
Because back then, it's like you would manually upgrade it, and you don't know. Like sometimes you don't know if it's going to turn out to be trash or good at the end, right? So you
Oh,
need
okay, so
to,
you can preview that now then.
and then it'll tell you. And then they make the UI a lot better with the relics. Basically, it tells you, oh, this relic gained like 2 upgrades in this stat and 1 upgrade in that stat, and it
Okay,
shows you all these things,
yeah.
and it's much more streamlined, much more refined. For battle perspective, it's like I haven't unlocked all the new content yet,
Mhm.
but they made a lot. Um, like one of the things that people dislike in the couple patches, like, oh, it's like I got this new character, but I can't get the materials to upgrade this new character because I haven't reached this far in the story, right?
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
people would try to binge through the story, skip everything so they could upgrade that character, or do some other stupid things to get there, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things you could do now is you can instantly teleport to um what was it? You can instantly teleport to where that material gives it to you. They let you kind of like access the material, but not all of them, so that you don't have to speed run to get there. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, so they give you access to only like the only part of like the materials that's needed to upgrade them, not all of them to get like their final upgrades. You're saying?
You could get like most of them. You just
Okay.
can't get like maybe like the new relics. For example,
Okay. Okay.
they have new relics too, right?
Hmm.
Like new relics, you have to get through that part of the story one part.
Okay. Yeah. I mean that makes
Uh,
sense.
but if you want to like just upgrade that character to their fullest, then yeah, it's like you could just pop in and
At least make them viable enough to get through the story and like play with them through the story
yeah.
instead of like feeling like you're hindering yourself actively by
So
having them in your
that's one
party.
of the biggest changes, which is
Okay.
good,
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say so.
because I I don't think I think it's very dumb that they always try to gate people. It's like, oh, you didn't do the story, then now you can't do it, right?
I'm familiar with it because FGO or Fake Grand Order has like that same problem. Like whenever they introduce like a new character that's part of like a new storyline, usually a new chapter in that game brings new materials. But if you want to upgrade them, they use that new material. So okay, I can't level you past a certain point because you require X amount of this new material that I don't have.
So,
I get it.
yeah. So I think that's a good feature to have. Like
Mhm.
I don't think like gameplay wise there's any like game breaking features that are added. I think the newest thing is like you could earn gems from doing the story because every time you pass this part in the story, you collect stickers and you can like put like this little photo where you're collecting all these stickers and like, oh, you get some gems. But gameplay perspective, it's like nothing big major has changed. It's just more like you're just playing it for the story right now.
Okay.
So
That's
so
cool. I mean, like that feels nice that like you're progressing. You're progressing like for the sake of like seeing more of the story at this point. Like you're not like doing like a mindless grind of like something. You're just like, hey, I want to see some new content. I got it. I'm just like, and then you're just kind of cruising at it at your own pace.
like I think most of the big gameplay changes has probably happened within the previous patch where they introduce like a different cycle on how to do the end game content was.
Okay.
Like
Hmm.
for example, if you do the Memory of Chaos, which is like the end game content, one of the things is that instead of going like you had to clear each floor until you get to 10 and then you clear it, then you clear all of it. Now it's like if you're strong enough, you can just clear from floor 7. So you jump the first 6 floors and just go straight to the end kind of thing, right? So
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
you
yeah.
could like kind of
So
speed run through it, right? And then they also changed like the timing cycle, how they come in. So now these content lasts for kind of like a month. And then there's a different version called Pure Fiction, which is like kind of like a time attack in a way. It's like you're trying to do as much DPS as possible through these mobs within like a certain time limit, right?
I know
Instead of
what
more,
I know one of your like main like gripes with Honkai Star Rail. Ever since release was like the pace at which like new stories were added to it. Like, do you think this will be enough of a gap not to, like tide you over to the next thing, or do you think, or have they addressed anything that will say, hey, we're gonna try to like kind of speed up at the rate at which this like game gets new content? Because I know one of the things that like drive you mad about this game is like, man, it takes forever for like new things to drop in this game.
I think the problem with the last version is like I think they should have just either delayed the game a little bit to have more story release at launch, because the way they was released was very stagnant. It's like, why do you have this story end in the middle of nowhere, and then I had to wait like nearly 4 months to just get a little piece of it, and then another 4 months to get a little piece of it, and then you're like, this is very, I don't know, it's kind of reaching, I guess. If you're saying,
Yeah.
it's kind of like what I dislike about it.
Yeah.
I hope this one is a lot more evenly paced. It kind of ends with a lot of questions as well, and I hope they deliver it, because it is very promising right now. And and things are promising. It could fall flat in your face, right?
And it's also better momentum too. It's like, okay, you guys, you have like your player base like really excited to see the next part, but if you're taking like 5 months to deliver that next part, you're kind of blowing it.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you,
kind of like what happened with the main story in Grand Blue as well. Like, I used to love the main story in Grand Blue, but the pacing has just became really awful, because back then you usually get like a lot of story within 3 months, and then it took a year for like not even like 2 chapters, and you're like, what happened a year ago? I don't remember anymore. You know,
yeah,
it became really bad, and now I don't even touch the main story anymore, because I kind of forget what's going on now, right?
it is pretty frustrating. Like when like a story that you become invested in, like just like its pacing just slows down to like a crawl, and you're just like, man, this something that you had like a lot of hope, like excitement for. You're just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. It feels awful. It feels awful.
Yeah, you probably get that. I don't know if
Oh yeah.
Fate Grand Order had that problem.
I mean, think about it like this: like, if we're following how Japan is right now, like the new story chapter for the main story for that game in the global version won't drop till like probably the end of the year. So I believe that's how it goes. So I remember this year will basically follow the footsteps of like having most of the year just build up to that chapter. It's like, okay, this kind of feels like shit. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I mean, I don't actively follow that game. I only really log in for like to just like play the story chapters, and that's it. I don't follow events anymore. I don't do any of that stuff.
I don't know how people can deal with the gameplay. If they
Look,
say that the story is the reason to get invested, and there's no story updates.
look, man. Some people, even on our Discord server, are very very avid fans and like are very loyal to like that game and keep up with it on a daily basis. I don't know how they can do it, but props to them. I'm just not built for that anymore.
Yeah, I can do it either. But yeah, that's kind of like what I think about it. I'm pretty positive about it. I just hope they just don't ruin it like what they did with the Lofu arc, sort of.
Mhm, mhm.
It's kind of like my expectation for the Honkai.
Nice.
That's really what we've got for games we've been playing. We've got a lot of things in the works for upcoming podcasts, but for this week, we had a chance to talk about those two games, so we took the chance and ran with it. And now we have kind of a moderate news slate, not a huge number of announcements here, but a few kind of detailed news bits. The first thing we have here is about CD Projekt, specifically the follow-up to Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I remember at one point last year, they announced 3 projects in a row, and I remember saying at that podcast, saying, like, "I'm not gonna get these project names straight," and turns out, no, I don't remember exactly what all they're doing. But luckily, Adam, you wrote a feature up about basically just kind of a look ahead at what CD Projekt is working on, not only with the follow-up to Cyberpunk 2077, but, like, the Witcher thing sequels and spin-offs, that project is, underway. So maybe I'll just hand this off to you to kinda talk about what specifically was new this week versus just a reminder about stuff that has been previously announced but not followed up on?
Okay, so you said last year, but it was actually October 2022 where basically CD Projekt outlined their upcoming projects, and they announced a lot. And I didn't keep it. I didn't remember exactly everything they announced. So in this week's basically update, I had to remind myself what was it? What was everything they announced again? And let me get it straight. And honestly, my news write up on this is almost just like notes for myself. Like, let me keep this straight here. All right. So here's what CD Projekt is working on. I'll go kind of in reverse order. One, they have a brand new IP called Project Hadar or Hadar. I don't know how to pronounce it. and we don't know anything about it. It's a new IP. It's not Witcher. It's not Cyberpunk. As far as we know, it's not some tabletop game. It's just a new IP. They announced it in October 2022, and we don't know anything about it. Other than they said it was basically in
Hadar,
concept.
we know nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Project Sirius. Now, this is in development at the Molasses Flood, which is a Boston-based studio that was acquired by CD Projekt a couple years ago. And this, we don't have a game name yet, but this is a, quote, innovative take on the Witcher universe, telling an unforgettable story for existing Witcher fans and new audiences. So, like, a Witcher spinoff, I guess. Now, the next one is Project Canis Majoris, which is the codename for the Witcher remake. And the Witcher remake is in development at Fool's Theory, which is a Polish studio. This is sort of interesting in that it's third party. It's not like a CD Projekt studio. It's just a different studio that basically is working with CD Projekt to make this game. They're actually the studio making the Thaumaturge, which comes out in a couple of weeks. So that's the Witcher remake. Then there's Project Polaris. Now this is the main guy. This is more or less Witcher 4. It's not called Witcher 4. It's only called Project Polaris for now. But this is the one in development at CD Projekt in Poland at probably all three of their studios there. They actually said that they're planning on this to be a new trilogy. And I actually went back and read what they said in October 22. They want to get 3 games out, I believe, within 6 years of each other. So what that means is one game would come out, and the next game would be out within like 3 years, and then the next game would be out within 3 years. So they're planning on getting another whole Witcher trilogy out. And that's Project Polaris. And then here's the actual relevant topic for this article that got an update this week, and this is Project Orion. So this is the Cyberpunk 2077 follow-up or sequel. We don't really know. It's the continuation of Cyberpunk. It may not be the same characters. It may be a different take on it. Who knows? Now, this is in development at actually their North American studios. So they have a studio in Boston, not the Molasses Flood, but a different studio in Boston. And then they have a studio in Vancouver. And these are the studios working on Project Orion. And basically what they announced are some key staff working on the game. Now, these unless you're like indie industry, these aren't probably not household names. But for example, the executive producer is Dan Hernberg, who was production at Blizzard Entertainment, Panic Button, Amazon Games. He worked on Apex Legend, Diablo 3. A director named Ryan Bernard, who was at IO Interactive for Hitman or Massive Entertainment for Ubisoft. One of the writers is Anna Magill. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. And she worked on Control, Dishonored, Avatar, Guild Wars 2, Fable. She does a lot of writing, I guess, and so on. You can read the post on it. Basically, they're just sort of staffing up for this project. It is interesting in that Cyberpunk 2077 was developed really by a different studio, and this is a new studio doing the follow-up in the U.S. in North America. So
Cyberpunk 2077 also took 11 years
from its original teaser. Yeah, its original teaser was 2011.
A lot of that was pre-production,
or 2009. It took a long time from the original teaser.
I would have to imagine, they've got the skeleton in place of what they want to do now with this follow-up. Can't imagine it'll take long.
Yeah.
Surely can't be a disastrous launch like the original.
I'm sure they've taken a lot of lessons learned from the initial launch of Cyberpunk 2077. Hopefully it launches on a much better spot, and it isn't as disastrous as that first game upon launch. I'm sure they've taken a lot of lessons from the game, and you saw some of that with the Phantom Liberty expansion.
Pop quiz: which one is Project Sirius? Do you remember?
Oh, that's the damn it!
Remake.
No, that's Canis Majoris.
No,
that's a spinoff. That's a spinoff. The Witcher spinoff.
It's the Witcher spinoff.
Oh man,
we all failed the test.
So out of all the games, there's only one of them that we have the title. That's the Witcher remake, which is Project Canis Majoris. The other 4, we just have a project name: Hadar, Sirius, Polaris, and Orion. All stars, I think. I guess is what these are. So
yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's also. I think it's also this sort of announcement is also something of a a recruitment pitch. They even say in the press release, like, you can go to see the job openings on our webpage. So it's not just for like consumers like us, but for people in the industry. It's like, hey, if you are an artist or a coder or whatever, if you want to work on this and you live in the in the US, hey, we have some job openings on this project, and you know what you're applying for. So
Get the wholesome writer on it.
yeah,
There you go.
I'm gonna guess he's Chinese though.
Yeah. Wow, they can always get translated.
Well, thank you, Adam, for kind of detailing out all those projects that I'm still not going to remember the name of. I will remember that there is a follow-up, a new trilogy, a remake, and an unnamed new IP. I'm already forgetting what the fifth one was. What am I forgetting?
Rebirth.
Oh, spin-off title. Yeah, whatever the spin-off title is. That the thing is that the first Witcher games, the first 3, aren't like they're not really a trilogy in that sense. They're in like the same series. Maybe I'm splitting hairs, and they do star the same character, but that's just the character from the books.
It's not
which I've
like
only read
super
the
direct
first.
follow-ups. It's not like when you go from The Witcher 1 to Witcher 2, it's not like,
Yeah,
you're not building off of like what The Witcher 1 established. Right?
It's not like
That's-
Mass
that-
Effect or something.
Yeah, exactly.
that's what I was trying to get to. So like I wonder if the next trilogy will be a little bit more iterative, because for that one it was like a different engine each time, and like a kind of a different style of game.
Now,
The
I
first
have
one
not
was very,
played
like,
Witcher 3, but I don't
Okay.
know if this is wishful thinking or if Witcher 3 seems to set this up, which I think it sort of does, but I know a lot of people are hoping that Witcher 4 stars Ciri. Is that her name?
I
could
was
see
thinking maybe
that.
the spin. I could say I was thinking the spin-off might be a Siri game,
Oh,
but
Yeah.
I'm guessing at least one of them will.
They're kind of in a weird spot after Witcher 3. We'll see.
Yeah. The next set of topics, I'm not sure how much time we're going to spend on this. This is basically we had the bespoke Sony State of Play specifically for the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And this, of course, we have our own published preview up on the site from someone who was able to have time with the game, Scott White. We have the trailer, the final trailer that was shown at the State of Play, and then we have just like the data dump of all the new characters, well, new and returning characters, the voice actors, et cetera, et cetera. And I literally saw, everywhere on Twitter and our Discord, people are like, "Nope, not gonna watch this trailer." Like, I know Square Enix, we've learned our lesson. They're
This
gonna.
trailer spoils a lot. I remember watching Maximilian, dude, and he was like, "Oh, buddy, you can't spoil this shit." And just like walks
And
away.
it's not even the sort of thing where it's like, well, it doesn't spoil it if you don't have context. Like Square, I'll be honest, I've not watched this trailer, but Square like tends to go over that line far enough where like context or no, they show a lot. And this is a meaty trailer; it's 4 minutes.
Like one of the parts in the trailer, it's like, "Oh, they're
Wait, are
fighting
you gonna? Are you,
Sephiroth at the end."
wait. Oh, okay.
we're going to
And
spoil
you're
it for
like-
our
I
whole
guess-
audience here.
And you're
You
like,
fight
"Hey, wait,
Sephiroth.
one person's missing in this trailer." It's like, "Oh, I think that thing's gonna happen then." It's
I
like
don't- I
Charles
think
ready
we're
to
not
fucking
gonna
spoil
talk any more
whole
about the
game.
trailer.
I can't believe
Charles
they showed
let me
Eric
tell
dying.
you. That's crazy.
Let me do this. We're not going to talk any more about the trailer contents, but
Honestly,
even-
some of the
even
stuff
as
in the
little
data
as we've
dump is
said-
also a little bit like, I think people might want to be surprised by this.
Charles is like, let me tell you in detail, second by second, what happened in this final
Yeah, the
trailer.
timestamp was at 2:22 in the trailer.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely a final trailer for a big Square Enix game. That, I mean, it doesn't hold back on that. It's not. There's a lot to think about. For those who dared to watch it, like me.
Look,
Oh,
it's
okay.
like if you're a Final Fantasy VII fan, you don't need this trailer to convince you gonna buy it. You know,
I mean,
You-
I don't care about the Square Enix final trailers anymore. I'm gonna like probably enjoy the game regardless. So I'm not gonna remember anything that happened in that fucking trailer, however many weeks from now. You know?
I will say that on non-spoilery, when I scroll through the data dump and all the screenshots, the main thing that I do think is really nice to see is just how well realized everything is. You scroll down, and it's like, here's Costa del Sol, here's Gongaga, here's Cosmo Canyon, here's Nibelheim, here's the Shinra Manor, and they all just look like so well realized and well made, and like they have a different appearance, and it really feels like it's like a globe-trotting adventure.
Yeah, I
And
guess we
that's-
should establish there's two different trailers. The final trailer and there's like the in-depth Rebirth gameplay video, which I think is fair game to like talk about because they show a lot of like really cool stuff in that gameplay video for like for both people who have been keeping up with news on this game and for people who are like seeing this game for the first time, and it's kind of like the whole complete package of like, okay, this is what FF7 Rebirth is all
I
about.
mean, the
Like,
only thing
something-
I've heard about FF7 recently is something to do with yellow paint, I guess.
When you're climbing walls, there's yellow paint there.
I mean, like people
I'm
people
joking.
freaked out. Yeah, yeah.
We all
I mean,
we all
people
know what
freaked out
yellow
about
paint means
this.
now.
Yeah, people freaked out about this about Resident Evil 4 remake. It's like, oh, they ruined the environment because there's yellow paint on where you can break things, right? And it ruins my immersion. And I can't believe they would do this. And then people like forgot that in the original Resident Evil 4 is really annoying to figure out what's breakable and what's not to find your shit in the original Resident Evil 4. So I mean, it doesn't really bother me honestly, but people will get mad at it. But I think the gameplay video for FF7 Rebirth that was shown at the State of Play was really cool. And like what you were saying, Brian, was they went into like just a brief detail of like all the different regions that you'll be exploring and like just how different they feel in terms of atmosphere, in terms of like visuals, and just like see a lot of like environmental variety and sights that you're seeing in this game. It really
which is something that the first game, obviously, based on how it was scoped, didn't
Yeah.
really have. I mean, they did pretty well with what they, with the context that they had. Like the slums looked very different from Wall Market, but it's still all Midgar. Where here it's like, well, nope, that constraint's removed. Now we've got all these different biomes and areas. And anyone who's played Final Fantasy VII, like that this section of the game, it really is kind of like world tour time. So that's the focus of the remake as well.
I have also seen that we have a new guest on the podcast who joined. That they were able to to wake themselves up. It's like, oh, all right,
I'll just pretend that he's late because he was celebrating Lunar New Year.
yeah.
And as far as you know, he was. Welcome back, James.
Hello. Sorry about that.
No
I was up
worries, it
too late
happens.
playing video games.
Jeez.
That happens.
So yeah,
But yeah,
and then
I was
Go
just
for
gonna say for James, we covered a few games we've been playing. We talked about Cyberpunk, and we're kind of, I think, wrapping up about Final Fantasy preview, state of play, gameplay stuff.
yeah,
Gotcha,
yeah. I mean, the big thing about this, aside from like the big gameplay video, like you saw like a ton of like fun mini games in it. And obviously, like the whole the not spirit grid. I forgot what they were called in the thing, but yeah, we have like these little nodes that you can find new synergy abilities on. I forgot what they called it. The what was it called?
Folio?
Folios. Yes.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is like it's a free respec. So like if you can just initially you can just instantly refund everything that you put into it and like go spec out a different way. So I thought that was a really nice touch to it too that they mentioned about these folios. So if you want to experiment, go for it. But also the big announcement of this was obviously they released a demo for FF7 Rebirth, and it's like an unusual demo too because it's out. It's already out on PlayStation, obviously, but they're gonna later update it to more content. So the content of the demo right now is like the Nibelheim flashback, but then later on, like shortly before release, they're gonna add like some parts of the Junon region to explore the open world too.
Is it Junon or Grasslands?
Well, I believe it was Junon.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I
Yeah.
remember, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I believe it's Shinon because it'll make it roughly a lot like the TGS demo, which had two sections for it. They had the Nibelheim flashback. Though playing the demo, the scope of the flashback you play in this demo is larger than the TGS one, and then there's a slice of the Junon open world. So
Yeah, so the weird thing about this demo is that there'll be like some small goodies you can bring over to the full game if you have like save data from the demo. You don't need to complete the demo or anything. You just need to have save data from the demo. But other than like getting those two goodies from those goodies from the demo save data, like there's nothing that carries over. There's no progress transfer. There's no level transfer.
You can't. I saw that like if you finish the Nibelheim chapter, you can just skip it in the main game, so it's like sort of
that's
progress.
true, but yeah, to me that feels, I don't know. I'm just weird. I was like, that just feels wrong because you're like kind of taking part out of these something from the full game. You're taking it out. You're
You're just
skipping
skipping
it.
a whole chapter
Yeah.
because you pre-read it.
I mean, I get it, but I just like I still would
No, I would still redo it in the retail release.
That's right. I forgot to think.
There's a lot of details in that flashback. They capture a lot of things in there, so I don't mind replaying that part again in the actual release. So at least for me.
But game is still looking incredible. They've sold me easily. I'm sure a lot of people liked what they saw in that. Just around the corner, it's a few weeks away.
The next news post, I think I'm going to hand off to Adam just because he seemed kind of emotionally charged about this announcement. It's an announcement of a new RPG coming out, slated to release for consoles and PC next year.
Yeah, you guys, I hear that this game is from Final Fantasy and Tactics Ogre veterans uniting.
Holy
brand
crap.
new.
Is this unsung story?
JRPG, hand painted. Okay, so we got this press release from Artisan Studios. If you're not familiar with Artisan Studios, they are a French-Canadian studio, and I believe they have two games they've released. One is Super Neptunia RPG, which I believe Chow reviewed like 6 years ago or whenever that was.
It was oof.
And then they also released Astria Ascending a couple years ago. Now
also oof.
Yeah. So here's kind of the context. So we got the press release on this game. And I think IGN had an exclusive on it, but the way that it was framed on like IGN and a few, actually I'm going to name them, Games Radar, VG247, and Eurogamer, at least 4 outlets, they all had some variation of brand new RPG from Final Fantasy and Tactics Ogre veterans. One of them even said it's a mix of Valkyrie Chronicles, which is my favorite series, is Valkyrie Chronicles.
Valkyrie.
Yeah, Valkyrie Chronicles. You've heard of it, right? Valkyrie Chronicles. Anyways, and that's just like technically true, but it's extremely generous. So here's the actual announcement. Lost Hellden is a game from Artisan Studios, a French-Canadian development studio, and they've signed on to have music done by Hitoshi Sakamoto. Now, hopefully, if you're a regular to this podcast, you know who Hitoshi Sakamoto is. He's a pretty big deal. He's a composer, and he's done a lot of stuff, including Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre. He's done Valkyria Chronicles. I have to get a Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter shout out in there. He's done a handful of Vanillaware games. Is he doing Unicorn Overlord? I think.
Maybe? Probably. I know he did Odin Sphere for sure.
Yeah, he's done a handful.
Yeah, I know Bass Escape.
I think he did. So I think he did. Odin Sphere. That's right. Now the thing is he also has his company, which is like Bass Escape, and sometimes some Bass Escape compositions are attributed to him when actually they are different composers that just worked there, that studio. But it sounds like this game is actually being composed and also just audio direction in general from Hitoshi Sakamoto. So when these other outlets are saying Final Fantasy veterans are making this game, that's really what they mean, is that it's a composer who's done some Final Fantasy stuff alongside a bunch of other stuff, working with this French-Canadian studio, which is cool. I like his music. And then also they have an artist. Let me pull up his name here.
Takeshi Oga.
Yeah. Now, some of these outlets, they describe this artist as a Final Fantasy XIV artist, but it seems like that's actually kind of like not what he's mostly known for. He did a little bit of concept art. Yeah, he's mostly known for Siren and Gravity Rush concept art. Yeah. Not necessarily character design or like main key visual, but just general art for the game. And I'm not trying to diminish it. Artists are very, very important. But that's what he's actually known for, is doing art for Gravity Rush and Siren. So those two people, Hitoshi Sakamoto and Takeshi Oga, that's what these outlets meant by Final Fantasy veterans, which is, if I was the studio for this game, I would advertise, hey, we have this composer and this artist. That's cool. But I wouldn't describe the game as Final Fantasy veterans are making this game. It's
a frustrating headline. That's like that. Yeah, that's definitely there to drive traffic.
Now, I haven't played Super Neptunia RPG or Astria Ascending, but based on just what I see, based on what Chow has said, maybe in a previous podcast a long time ago, what Quentin has said in his review of Astria Ascending, and just their Metacritics. Both these games have sub 70 Metacritics. I know Metacritic's not the end all be all, but just talking general reception of these games, it's not inspiring. Like, oh, so we have a new game coming from the studio that it's kind of stumbled.
You could say it's kind of like a Tokyo RPG factor.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the
And you
game
know, they
itself,
end
the
up-
game itself is Lost Hellden. It seems to have, they call it hand painted, and it actually uses a technology that they call deep 2D, which they just say deep 2D allows you to play in 3D in hand painted artworks. So it's some combination of like 2D art and 3D environments. And if you look at like the combat gameplay that they show bits of in this trailer, it is like a 3D environment with sort of a, I don't want to say cell shading, but it does have a more of an artistic look, not necessarily, photorealistic or whatever. And I mean, sure, I'm curious about the game. I'm more curious than I am interested based on the developer's pedigree. But yeah, I was, as Brian said, I was sort of emotionally charged seeing all these outlets calling it like from Final Fantasy veterans, and I just thought that that's misleading at best, and like not non-genuine at worst. So
can I ask you guys to play the Grand Blue mobile game? They got nothing but Final Fantasy veterans on that.
that's true.
Well, there you go.
It's got Umetsu and Minaba, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are Final Fantasy veterans.
Yeah. I mean, the entire first arc has the entire soundtrack composed by Nobuo.
There's all the headlines saying Final Fantasy veterans.
I heard they made a new
Grand Blue
console game. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink? Final Fantasy veterans?
Yeah, where's the headlines on that?
But yeah, being more serious, that actually sort of reporting just kind of irks me because it feels like either intentionally like misleading or just poor.
I just had like such a terrible experience with like Kickstarter back in the day when they keep advertising like certain projects, like
Unsung
Project
Story
Phoenix
with Matsuno or whatever.
Yeah, and there's Project Phoenix. It's like, oh, it's like we got Nobuo Uematsu, we got all these people, and you're like, then later on, you're like, where's the game? It's like, oh, we didn't even have a programmer. It's like, what?
But also like sometimes it just feels like it doesn't get them a lot. Like I remember when Sea of Stars came out and they said that Mitsuda was going to do parts of the soundtrack. Like, he did a few tracks, and then the main composer of Sea of Stars was Eric Brown, and this soundtrack is great. Like,
yeah,
it just seems like you're just kind of hiding yourself under a bigger name, and I don't know if it was worth it.
That kind of reminds me of the soundtrack for the what's the name of it? Ukulele in the Impossible Lair, where it's like they kind of marketed the fact that the soundtrack had a bunch of like the original like Rare composers working on it. But personally, my favorite songs from that soundtrack were the ones from the in-house composer, right? Like what's her name again?
Playtonic? No, is that?
Yeah, Playtonic.
No.
Yeah, Playtonic.
Was that Lena Rain or whatever?
No, not her. It was someone else. But it seems like a similar situation then.
So were they using like David Weiss as like Slout for the game, for the Kickstarter or something? Was it?
Well,
That's how
no,
it comes across,
Impossible
as, like,
Lair
cloud
wasn't
a little bit.
kickstarted, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, this
So, yeah,
game is coming out to consoles and PC in 2025.
That's the other thing is it's far out, which is fine if I announce it that far out. It's like okay, like this year is already packed, but we'll keep an eye out on it for next year.
Al is signing up to review it. I heard.
Yep.
No, I'm not doing it. Please.
This next one is kind of a business news topic, and it's about From Software's parent company. I'm going to mispronounce this. Kadokawa Games. Kadokawa Corporation. Yeah. So they have announced that they have acquired the Octopath Traveler series developer Acquire from Gung Ho.
It's kind of a funny headline.
They have acquired.
Like, what? Okay.
Yeah. The name of the company is Acquire.
Also technically
Acquire.
Also technically a co-developer for the Octopath Traveler series.
Man, I almost thought they were owned by Square Enix all this time.
They collaborate, but they are not owned by Square Enix.
Now,
So, yeah,
actually,
there's
one thing about this that I didn't know Acquire was a subsidiary of Gung Ho.
I forgot about the Gung Ho.
Like that was done. I had to check. That was like back in 2013 or 14 when that was happened, and I just sort of thought of them as like an independent studio that just sort of contracted out to different publishers like Square Enix. But no, they were a Gung Ho studio, and now they are a Kadokawa studio. And Kadokawa is interesting because Kadokawa, people forget this, but they own From Software, and From Software games like in Japan, they're not published by like, because we think of them as like Bandai Namco here in the West, but in Japan they're like self-published or like Kadokawa published. They don't have that Bandai Namco kind of partnership. That's just for localization and overseas. But yeah, Kadokawa is the parent company of From Software as well as the parent company of Spike Chunsoft.
They have a lot of cash.
But what's sort of interesting is that
the entire anime industry.
But yeah, Kadokawa has a ton of media stuff too. Like, in fact, they have so much just media stuff that they actually divested their like internal studios a while ago, a couple years ago. They like formed like Dragami Games, and this is where like the studios that did like Relayer and God Wars ended up. And that's actually a reason why a lot of those games that were localized by NS America got delisted, because they were that licensing is sort of broken now because Kadokawa no longer has those studios under them because they were divested, and it's kind of all part of this web of ownership. But they acquired a new studio, which is sort of interesting after that. I don't know what they plan on doing. Like, I guess, you acquire a studio to make a game, right? So I wonder what they want to do with that.
I have to also imagine that Acquire still has like the relative freedom to like collaborate with other companies, like sort of like the Octopath Traveler deal of like.
I mean, Gung Ho allowed them to, apparently.
Yeah, so
I don't even know what Gung Ho does other than like Ninjala.
I mean, like Kadokawa allows like say like From Software to like work with Bandai Namco, so I imagine that doesn't change. It's not like they're caged off or anything.
So I have a question. Did that Dragon Quest HD 2D, was that done by Acquire as well?
No,
we don't know yet.
It had a studio name, who I always forget. So on the original trailer, which was for Dragon Quest III HD 2D, it had a studio name. It said like Asano Team, and then it had like a studio name whose name I forget. But if you actually go back to that trailer now, that studio is no longer there. They like changed the YouTube description. It still says Asano Team, I believe. So which makes me think that they must have changed hands at some point. And we don't know who's developing it. We're still waiting for that game to like show up again. Give me a second. Continue talking. I'll see if I can find what it was.
Yeah.
I was a whole Acquire project all this time. Just because of Octopath. Guess it's not.
No.
Set in stone.
I don't know. Acquire is such an interesting developer because they also like in the slide of like about the acquisition, they also mentioned like Tenchu 4. That was like it was developed by Acquire, but like the release of it in Japan was like handled by From Software. The collaboration. There's been previous collaborations in between like the Kadokawa groups. So there's like history between them. But Kadokawa's. I just think like whenever I think about how big Kadokawa is, I just think of like all the ads in Famitsu issues because it's just like tons of like guides for games that's like, and it's all like under a Kadokawa's like umbrella. It's just insane. I'm trying to think what else. But
I was just thinking like this isn't like the same consolidation as what we've seen with Embracer Group over the last 2 months. This is
I mean
Kadokawa
has like Kadokawa actually has like the funds to do this. That which is
they're not banking on a Saudi influx of cash.
No.
So they're already established.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a similar situation, there'd be a lot of layoffs from Software, if not like a disbandment of From Software. If this was like Embracer,
Well, I wouldn't say that would be like what would happen. If anything, From Software would be like probably the one studio that would come out unscathed because they're the moneymaker and whatnot.
But but they wouldn't be like unaffected. There would still be, a ways to save money. It's like, okay, can we actually, like, we're comparing something to like, it's like a completely made up situation that we're doing right here. But I'm just saying that like, if this was like Embracer situation, this would be From Software wouldn't come out unscathed if this was a similar situation. Whether we would hear of it or not is a separate matter. But they wouldn't completely come out unscathed if this was like Embracer. What I'm saying. So that's where I'm getting at.
And all the rest of the headlines this week are kind of just short updates, but I didn't know if Adam was going to have one more update on this Dragon Quest HD 2D.
I can't find it. What
tangent.
the studio name was called that is no longer there.
Got
Yeah.
Which will not be
history.
named.
Yeah, one thing I did find is that on the official Japanese trailer, it still lists the platforms as undecided, so that'll be interesting to see.
So all the rest of these, like I said, are kind of standard updates. Here's one that's kind of interesting just because of how they named the patch, and Adam may be able to explain this. Adam reviewed last year a strategy RPG, more like just a pure
Wait,
tactics
shut up.
game, right? Jagged Alliance.
Shut up. I found it.
That-
Amata
I'm shutting
KK was what the studio was listed as at one point. Amata KK, but it's no longer there.
and
Anyway,
does
what
that
were you
name
saying?
Never heard
mean
of that
anything?
studio in my life.
Did you Wayback Machine this?
I actually remembered that Brian mentioned it a long time ago. I would have put this in the
I
staff channel.
did?
If we're gonna
Holy crap!
people are gonna be confused what I'm referring to here.
Adam has tapped in Cerebro and went back.
I know, like I imagine, like a certain point, like Adam was like a vision.
Anyways, what were you
Monato's
saying?
power. Jagged Alliance 3 is getting an update. They've named the update Larry.
It's a good update name.
Can you explain this?
Well, okay.
Does that mean anything?
I think James is the one that covered this. And now I know for Jagged Alliance 3, they had always planned on having like modding tools and being able to create like your own campaigns and things like that. They had always planned to do that, but it wasn't in launch. It like wasn't in the version I reviewed. And I know they've updated the game several times since launch last year. So I wasn't sure if this was the update that basically added the full campaign modding or not. I saw that James covered it. Let me take a quick look here.
That's what.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it says new extensive modding tools, create new campaigns, quests, edit maps, and much more. Customize the difficulty of each playthrough with new rules and other issues fixed. So yeah, this looks like basically the campaign creator. Which if you some of these sort of tactics or like even some RTS games have these sort of modes where you can play the story that's in the game or you can kind of create your own, which is cool.
And they named the patch Larry.
Good patch name.
The other update, we probably could have covered this back when we were talking about it, but alongside Honkai Star Rail 2.0 update landing this month, Hoyoverse has announced that Star Rail has hit over 100 million total downloads, and also it is now compatible with the Apple Vision Pro headset.
Sorry, I can't afford that to test you to tell you how good it is.
You gotta reach out to your contact at Hoyoverse and say, hey, I will cover your game.
Give us the Apple Pro.
Either let Hoyoverse like pay for it and give you one, or somehow convince Alex to give you the funds for an Apple Vision Pro, and you have to test
You've
it
already
out
got
the
the spiel. You got to say, hey, 100 million people have downloaded this. Think of the potential.
You have to go ride the bus, ride a train, tell us how it is to ride or to play Honkai Star Rail and public transportation.
Probably get hit by a car.
I mean, don't like drive while you're playing. Come on, you gotta be on a train or on a bus. I'm not saying for you to drive yourself while wearing an Apple Vision Pro. I never suggest that.
I saw a video, and I'm sure other people have seen it too, of some asshole like in a Tesla using the auto drive air quotes feature while also wearing an Apple Vision Pro, and it's like I feel like in some hypothetical world where I was a traffic cop, if I saw that, I wouldn't give them a ticket. I would just be like, hey, can I see your license? And then just like arrested, just off the road.
Yeah, that's not great. I wish, don't do that. If you're planning on doing that or doing it, do not do that. That's no good.
If you're gonna get an Apple Vision Pro, you should sit on your couch and play Honkai Star Rail.
There
You
you
should
go.
not be behind the wheel. There you go. We got a new trailer for one of March's biggest releases, upcoming in just over a month, just under a month, Unicorn Overlord. So a month and a half ago, we got our first trailer that was underneath the guides called Commander's Guidance. I believe it was to Exploration, Joseph's Guide to Exploration. And I said, this is probably going to be the first in a series of videos. And yep, it was. This week, we got Joseph's Guide to Interaction. And this one I don't think was as interesting as the first. And the first one I kind of got chided a little bit, deservedly so, for saying like this is like Fire Emblem, when everyone's like, no, this is like Ogre Battle. This one, I'm gonna say it's like Fire Emblem again. This is they're calling it a rapport conversations, and between two characters, if they're in the same like party, they can build rapport with each other, or if they have the meal system together, you can unlock conversations between them, and it gives them stat boosts in battle. So it's kind of a support.
It's just like real life. It's not even like Fire. It's just like real life.
We had they had like an info dump post, I don't know, several weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, where they kind of detailed some of this stuff. Josh posted it up, and this is sort of just like the video version of it, or at least a part of it, where it's like you can build rapport, you can go to taverns, you can make food. This trailer doesn't even go into like the ritual of bonding or whatever it's called, like the marriage system or whatever, the not quite marriage system. But two things. I have two comments. One, this video has the English dub, where the first video had the Japanese dub, which is just sort of interesting. You want to see what it sounds like in English. Two, one thing I thought that was sort of amusing about this video is it shows a little clip about one of the characters, one of the guy characters whose name I forget, speaking to one of the women characters who like doesn't wear anything. They just wear like a bra armor, and that's it. And that character, he gifts her a tunic, and she's like, "Wow, I love this." I just thought that was sort of funny. They're gifting clothes to the woman who doesn't wear clothes. Just telling her, put something on. I don't know.
Part of RPGs, the less you wear, the more defense you have.
I don't know why. This is what first comes to mind for me. I don't know why. I'm not sure why it's this game, because there's so many different examples of it. But I remember Suikoden Tactics. In Suikoden Tactics, one of the armors you get is like battle bikini or something like that, and it's like the strongest armor. Like, yeah, we're more defense.
Persona 3. Got it.
Persona 3, the original versions had that too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a fest thing or not, but this game's less than a month away, if you can believe it.
It's like a week after Rebirth. You're gonna be done with
Rebirth
by then, right?
I've had to play both. I gotta prioritize.
I'm like determined to somehow complete Rebirth before this game. I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
You're gonna play the demo, and you're gonna skip the Nibelheim section.
No.
and then that'll buy you like an hour back.
An hour.
The next update that we have was this is kind of a follow-up to the look-in that we got last week during the State of Play for Rise of the Ronin. This is like not really a trailer, but a behind-the-scenes video. They call this episode 1, so very clearly going to be the first in a series for the development of Rise of the Ronin. And this one is pretty interesting because it's not behind the scenes in terms of like gameplay, just like distilling down the gameplay mechanics. It's literally shows trying to get the producer's
almost like a
name.
dev blog, which is cool.
Yeah, it's like a dev diary, and how this game takes place in, I hope I get this right, 1800s Japan, 19th century Japan.
Yeah, Bakumatsu.
And visiting the Fumihiko Yasuda, who is the director of Ninja. Basically, it shows him like visiting some of the historical locations, some of the characters that have been represented into the game, taking photographs, and just talking about like what they were trying to accomplish. And it's almost like a history lesson disguised as a game footage. And I don't know, it's just interesting in seeing like what sort of would determine why this game was made in the first place. Like, why is this an interesting period of time? What sort of stories can they tell here? Because of course it's historical fiction. What's the word for that? Where it's based on true events.
Yeah, historical fiction. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
And there's a cool part about this behind the scenes that they're talking about how like this period of Japan is when they basically their isolation ended and began to become more of a worldly country, and mixing and trading with the U.S. and whatnot. And they talk about they wanted that to like influence some of the music as well. So they have their Japanese orchestras, and then they also did work with Inan Zur and some like Western orchestras also. I just think that's cool.
That's
I'm really fascinated by the research of this game. Like even like when it comes to like the gliders, like it's like it's one of those things. Like wow, that's like you really clearly made this stuff like to make traversing the game more fun. But then they're like, no, the gliders design was actually based on Ikansai Kunitomo's blueprint of Abikiru, and Kunitomo's like an inventor and gunsmith of the late Edo period, best known for having built Japan's first reflecting telescope. And then his invention of Abikiru is also believed to be the oldest airplane blueprint in Japan. It's like, oh, it's actually like based on history. Interesting, you know.
Anyway,
pretty
this game
excited
looks
for
really
this.
cool, so I'm gonna go sit in the PC waiting room.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going with that. Is like, all right, because it's like everything in the first part of the year, releasing at a crowded time, on a crowded day. We got the most recent quarterly financials from Nintendo, and the main thing for our coverage here is that Super Mario RPG has sold 3.1 million units, which I'm sure is well. Actually, I was gonna say that seems like it would be above expectations, but I don't know. That's a guess. But
Isn't that
It
more
is
than
the-
FF do very
16?
well.
Nah, well, it's selling
Probably.
faster than 16 at least, probably. But the I saw on like a install base, which is like a
Sales
game
forum,
sales
right?
sales forum. Basically, with these sales, it is now the second largest selling Mario RPG title, only eclipsed by the original, and it's probably gonna outpace it eventually.
Wow.
Well, the original Mario
So-
RPG didn't release in Europe. Worth noting.
But still doing very well. And Adam, when you're like summarizing these, Tears of the Kingdom is also above 20 million, which is insane. Breath of the Wild is 30 million. Like Breath of the Wild has sold like 500,000 in the last quarter. Like, yeah,
I
just
saw
another
that
cool
Breath,
500,000.
or no, sorry, I saw that like it's just kind of fun to see, like, to compare these sorts of different scales of games, like Mario Kart 8, which is the best-selling Switch game for obvious reasons, but like in the last, it surpassed 60 million sales, 60 million,
Jesus.
and it sold like
A
1
large
million.
number.
It sold like 1 million in the last 6 months, like several years after launch. And this is like a deluxe version of a Wii U game. Like, yeah, just another cool million, easy.
I don't know where they go for the next Mario Kart, to be honest, because it feels like the Mario Kart 8 feels like the ultimate edition of a Mario Kart game that you can
Well,
possibly
they just
get.
not too long ago they released more DLC for it,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
Just basically
yep.
just more nostalgia tracks from earlier
It
games.
was like 40 plus new tracks or something for that booster pass or whatever the track called. So just like there's just an insane amount of fucking content in that game. It's like I don't know what you do for.
That's kind of how I feel about like new Smash Bros.
Yeah,
Where I guess Sakurai is like putting a pause on his like YouTube channel, and it's like, yeah, he's going back to Smash Bros. Like, what else is there to do in Smash Bros? That's how I feel. As someone
I
who
feel
only
like the
plays
next
game
Smash Bros
casually.
has to have like it has to be different somehow. You can't just do the same thing again. But I don't know.
third-person shooter.
Foam
Helldivers like.
stars.
Foam stars.
Persona 3 Reload, obviously just released in the beginning of the month, has sold 1 million copies. So it has officially become the fastest selling title in Atlus's history.
That's crazy.
A very small dampener on this news, not to take much away from it, but it's also the first like mainline-ish Persona game that had a worldwide release. So like the starting gate was bigger, if you
Yeah.
will, in terms of people
Yeah.
buying it, versus like say Persona 5 Royal, which was staggered by like 6 months between Japanese and West or whatever. But still, a very good accomplishment. It's almost hard to believe that not that long ago, it took Persona 5 Strikers like 2 years to get localized. Remember that?
Oh my
And
gosh, you're
wasn't
right.
that also the first Persona game on PC?
I think it was after. That was after. Was that after 4 Golden? It was one of the first.
It was yeah, those two were first. Okay.
But still, I just
And
like
now it's
this
and
is the
now it's
first
all
worldwide
platforms,
release
same
Persona
day,
game,
worldwide,
the
yeah.
first PC release, like simultaneous mainline Persona game worldwide, and hopefully that's the norm going forward. Now they
Yeah,
just
I
need to
mean,
get
yeah.
now they just need to get Vanillaware on the PC.
Yeah,
Yep.
seriously. But like two things
VanillaWare
that
really is just like the one major holdout now, because like I guess Falcom too, but like
that's a
Falcom, like
complicated situation.
that's complicated, and we have them like Kondo saying straight up that they want to release games day and date on PC, which is something.
Well, they
It's
also need to
something.
work on the whole localization delay there.
Yeah.
So it's just anyway. Two things I think of out of this announcement. One, I'm really glad to see just all the recent JRPGs, big JRPGs, thriving despite releasing in a relatively tight time frame. So you have like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, easily reaching like 1 million, like and like has done like franchise record breaking sales in terms of like how fast they've sold to 1 million each. So whoever decided on the release schedule at Sega, it's like, this is okay, they'll do fine. It's like, I guess you're a fucking genius. Uh,
It'll be very interesting to see, like, if I remember correctly, not 2023, but 2022, like that last quarter where like it was the same. I'm hoping that I'm not getting this mixed up. But the quarter they released like the Persona 5 port for other platforms and PC and Sonic Frontiers and whatnot. That was like the best Sega quarter in like years and years and years in terms of sales and revenue. This first quarter, you got Yakuza, you got Persona, and Unicorn. Now Unicorn's going to be small fry compared to those two, I think. But still, like this is going to be a big quarter for Sega. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and also it's nice to see that Granblue Relink as well was able to find success in between these two major, more well known, or at least in the West, more well known like RPG releases, and all of them seem to be doing just fine, which is awesome to see. I always love when good games come out and do all well. So 2 thumbs up on that. Two, I'm really interested to see how well Metaphor will sell later on in the year, because that's a brand new IP but has like big Persona veterans behind it. So I'm interested to see like where their expectations are, and like will we see another million seller in that aspect from Sega? Like I wonder if Metaphor has that enough of that, I guess resonance in the community, like bring it up to be a
I
million
believe
seller.
Sega has said it sort of reminds me of Soul Hackers 2, sort of. Obviously, Metaphor is a new IP, and Soul Hackers is sort of a revival of an old IP and whatnot. But like, I know Sega has said that Soul Hackers 2 was a little bit under expectations. Like, they wanted that one to do better than it did.
Right.
Now, I know this isn't quite the exact same situation. New IP, different developing like studio within Sega Atlus, but still, it's obviously got like the Persona team behind it. But I wonder how much pull that's going to have on Persona fans.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah, even though it looks, on its surface, like very much like different visually and aesthetically from Persona, it still like has like some core systems that is built off of a Persona skeleton for sure.
All the rest of the updates here are kind of in chronological order for upcoming important dates. The first one's actually, as of time of recording, from yesterday. The first DLC for Fate Samurai Remnant release, the Keian Command Championship. I did watch the trailer for this, but I don't have a baseline for like what was in the base game. So there's a new servant character, and there's like some new battle challenges, but I can't speak to them because I'm not familiar with the base game.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing about this DLC from the trailer is that all the in the base game there are only certain like master servant pairings that like you got to control. So obviously you had the main duo that was playable for 90% of it, but then you had like some additional like mini chapters ostensibly where you could control others, but it wasn't all of them. So you could control assassin, you could control archer, you could control um like one
Berserker.
other
Both
berserker.
Berserkers.
Yeah, but you couldn't control like caster or rider, and it seems like in this DLC you're finally able to like take control of them.
Can you control boss? I don't think you can control boss.
So here's the thing: there is a little mini teaser at the very end of that DLC trailer where like boss seems to be like a summonable servant, like like that can join you, like a rogue servant.
Oh, I didn't look at this close enough.
Yeah. So it looks like
I was under the impression that this was just like boss's tournament, and he's just like, "Come, let's fight."
The boss definitely showed up as like an attack for like at the end of the trailer. So boss maybe could be like a rogue servant deal as well. But so it seems to be a DLC where like everyone is like sort of playable. But then the big, obviously for Fate fans, the big thing here is like Ibuki-Douji is a servant that shows up in the Fate Grand Order, and then so she shows
Oh
up
yeah,
here as a
Ibuki-Douji.
boss. Yeah, as like a yeah.
Hyped.
So she shows you here as a boss battle. So for Fate fans who are fans of her, she shows up in this game now in this DLC. I don't know. I don't know if she's playable, but she's definitely like a boss fight.
On February 13th, we're getting the release date for Astlibra Revision Gaiden. Is this the DLC that they announced alongside the Switch
Yes.
version or around the same
Yes.
time?
Yep. Yeah, correct. So this
So I know
Astlibra
a few
Revision
of us here.
Gaiden, the Cave of Phantom Mist. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I didn't
yeah.
play the base game, but I'm not sure like those that have played it, like how excited are you for this?
I'm very excited for this, but it's like it's such a busy time frame too. It's like, oh, why was this a February 2024 release?
It's like, could this been April instead?
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? Because this post was made on February 9th, so a day before this recording. They're like, yeah, it's coming out in 4 days or like 3 to 4 days. What? Hello? and they're like, and then they already said like before, it's like it's gonna be like a casual like what
20 hours,
like 20 to 30 hours. It's like and this is this DLC, this Gaiden, there was an original version of it like the base game, but obviously it's been expanded due to the success of the base game, and plus like just thinking about like new features and making it the best it could be possible. So it's so like we mentioned before, the main character is the baker's daughter, and this one obviously will have like new systems, moves, new weapons, new progression systems, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if I'm gonna get around to it. I'll be honest. I want to play it as soon as possible. I don't know when as soon as possible is at the moment.
Don't
I
worry,
feel
Josh.
ya.
I got you covered.
Are you gonna play it when it releases?
Yeah, I'll play on release.
Okay.
I can't think of what to play during this time after I'd done, like Grand Blue Relink and Persona Guide. So it's
Yeah.
like this little small breather to get it in. But if I don't play it within the small breather time frame, then I'm screwed. Then all the big releases will come out after.
Yeah,
that.
so here, I guess the thing here is like this is the release coming on Steam. The Nintendo Switch version will come later, so it will come out on February 13th. That'll be at a later time. And like for me on like scheduling, like I'm on a certain assignment right now. And then after that, maybe I'll get around to this because I also wanted to like start. I don't know if I can start Persona 3 Reload too, because like Rebirth is around the corner as well. And then after Rebirth, it's gonna be time for Unicorn Overlord. And then maybe after Unicorn Overlord, maybe it's like maybe that'll be safe. I don't know.
No, you won't be safe. You'll get Saga.
Oh no, but Saga's April, right? So think of I'm trying to think of like the month of March. Is there anything like middle to late March?
Dragon's Dogma at the end.
Yeah, there's
and Rise of Ronin. The Ronin.
And Princess Peach Showtime on the same day as Rise of the Ronin and Dragon's Dogma 2 both.
Yeah, we're totally screwed.
Okay, so mid-March seems to be a safe time frame if like I'm a god gamer.
Good thing that's true.
Okay, good.
You just gotta prove it.
You're right, I guess.
Just gotta get through Unicorn Overlord and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in time to be able to play this DLC before Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah,
Simple.
And then somehow Persona 3 Reload is in there somehow too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, this is why I just like decided like early on, since I haven't played like a Dragon 7 yet, it's like I'm just not gonna play it at launch. I'm just gonna wait until it's on sale. I'm gonna play it like in fall, and just make sure I play it in time for like Game of the Year deliberations, because there's no way in hell I'm going to get it be able to fit it in at a reasonable time frame. I just had to punt.
You'll have to make sacrifices in our life. Get it.
On February 14th, on Valentine's Day, we're getting the Wolong Fallen Dynasty collaboration with Lies of P. I thought this already came out.
Me too.
But
so this is the Wolong in Lies of P collaboration. We already got the Lies of P in Wolong collaboration.
Oh,
You're excited for this one.
Okay. So this is the Tekken X Street Fighter. We already got Street Fighter X Tekken.
Yes.
Are you excited for this then?
So you can dress up as like a Wolong character in Lies of P now if you want.
Awesome. So whenever I get around to Lies of P, which I haven't gotten to yet, so somehow
I mean, you're gonna fit that in before Unicorn 2, right?
Obviously.
Also, you could play as your Wolong cameo. But no, it's fun to see interesting pairings collaborate.
I love that collab, to be honest. Like, it's just so out of nowhere that I love it. Like, it's so,
and it's kind of heartwarming in a way.
Yeah.
Where like these Korean developers making Lies of P were just like, we love Team Ninja. We wanted to do a collab with Team Ninja, so we just asked, can we do a collab, and we did. So
that's just gotta
awesome.
ask.
Yep.
The next date is that we're getting in Japan, a demo will be releasing for a new Nipponichi title, Bar Stella Abyss, coming out for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4.
It looks interesting. I think I'll probably download this demo and give it a shot to see whether or not I make time for it later this year.
I'll wait for English release. I have accepted this.
So there is no formal English announcement. In Japan, the game is coming out in full at the end of the month on the 29th on Leap Day. And then the demo is just releasing on the 14th.
I know that a lot of NIS Japan titles don't get picked up for localization or take a while, but the one good thing about this is that since this is ostensibly a tactical RPG, at least partly, that means that it will be localized in a relatively timely manner, because that's the one genre that it's NIS's bread and butter, and NIS America definitely.
It's one of those things. If it's a VN from this, it's okay, this is 80-20% shot. 80% it's not getting localized, because usually VNs from this never really come over. But if it's RPG, it usually.
I hope that one puzzle game that they're working on, I'm not sure if it's released yet or if it's still upcoming, gets localized, because it looks interesting.
Which one was that?
I don't. Let me just check really quick. I saw their Twitter account posting about a pre-release tournament for the puzzle game a few months ago. Let's see. Okay. Yume Iro Yuram. I don't. So when does this come out?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Yume Iro Yuram. So that's okay. I remember this game.
Looks neat.
All I remember is sort of the key art of a pixelated girl with yellow hair, I think, blonde hair, doing puzzles. Something like that. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, Bar Stella Abyss coming out in Japan at the end of the month. No announcement of localization, but there will be a demo. It's launching at some point this spring and having a demo now available as part of Steam's Next Fest. We have Terra Memoria, which is described as a cozy turn-based RPG. So that one has a demo available now. And it has an isometric, almost like a classic Trails sort of art style to it, in terms of the way the sprite work looks.
I downloaded 2 Steam Next Fest demos that I haven't been able to get to yet, because I've been working on an assignment. I have I have both Terra Memoria and Sword of Convaleria that we discussed a few podcasts back. I just haven't had time for them. But Chow, make time for that. Make time for the Sword of Convaleria thing that we talked about.
No, I need to finish this relink guide because I've feature creeped it.
No, yeah. Did you get all the crabs on it?
Oh, I have changed from screenshot to video clips now.
But did you get it? But did you get all of them though?
Not yet. But I have decided to replay the game on PC now. So I'll catch up in no time.
When I
have
get around to
made-
playing this game, your guide better be finished.
That's right.
Oh Jesus!
Starting tomorrow.
Is this-
I was like, I'm downloading it right now.
It's like Adam. It would be the superintendent, and I'll be Principal Skinner. It's like
On February 21st, that's when the open beta for Final Fantasy XIV on Xbox begins. The key headline here that's been shared around in multiple places is that maybe James or Chow, is this 100% confirmed that the full game will require the Game Pass Basic in order
Yep.
to access the
Yep.
online feature?
It says that right in the
Okay.
post. So basically, the game still has a free trial. And if you get the free trial, you don't require any subscription. But if you want to go past that, so what's that? Past Stormblood?
yeah. It's
Then
past
you need
Stormblood
then
now.
you both need a Final Fantasy 14 subscription,
I-
and if you're playing on Xbox, you need a Game Pass subscription.
It's
And
like realistically, well, first off, this is bullshit no matter which way you slice it. But realistically, if you're playing on an Xbox console in this day and age, you probably already own Game Pass, so it isn't going to impact very many people that are going to be interested in playing this. But it's still it's a really bad look that you don't need PlayStation Plus to play 14 online on PlayStation, even if you're playing the expansions. But you do need to pay a separate subscription fee to play like the game that if you're past the free trial on Xbox.
Yeah, it doesn't
Bullshit.
feel good.
Also, to sign up for this beta, you need to be a fresh player. You can't
Yeah.
be someone that
Oh yeah.
played before. I find it very
I-
dumb.
I wonder if that's not by design. I wonder if it's a stealth way of them trying to get an idea of exactly how many people they're going to gain from releasing on Xbox. Which I do wonder, and this is being a bit pessimistic, but considering everything that happened this week, I'm not sure if it's being too pessimistic. I wonder how long this port is going to be supported. Is it going to be 2 expansions? Is it going to be 3? I don't know.
Is it possible if it's one of those things that like eventually down the road they drop support Xbox Series S but not X because of limitations?
I don't think they would do that. Specifically because
I'm just thinking about like how they drop support for like previous gen consoles, right? Because of
yeah.
technical limitation.
Well, I don't think it will be dropping support. I mean, they still support the PlayStation 4. I mean,
Well,
if
they
you drop
said that Dawn Trail was going to be the last expansion that supports PS4.
Yeah, they're sunsetting PS4 soon.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, you know. I mean, yeah, that's aging hardware. I'm just thinking about like, you know, I know that the Series S hardware is still, you know, it is still a step back compared to like what PS5 and Xbox Series X.
I guess where it matters, the CPU is about equivalent with the Series X and the PS5, so that's something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
What was that other thing they stopped doing? They stopped supporting DirectX 9, was it? Or something?
Yeah, that makes sense. I believe they said that with Dawn Trail, they're adding in a DirectX 12 renderer with some alongside the graphics update.
Really trying to push out the people using old hardware. It's time to upgrade your PC, guys.
Look, if you look at the minimum specs for Dawn Trail, maybe this is out of line, but if your PC doesn't meet the minimum specs for Dawn Trail, you probably should have upgraded your PC a few years ago.
Nope, sticking with the PS4 version forever.
And the very last headline that we have here is that Ys Memoir, the Oath and Felghana, this is like the remaster with new portraits of Ys, Oath and Felghana that released on Switch in Japan last year. It will be releasing on PlayStation 4 and 5 in Japan this year in May. And still no word on whether anyone's going to pick this up for for localization.
If
Don't know if that's tied into old XSEED agreement or what.
I think
I'm
the
not
whole
sure if there's
reason
any
they probably don't
speculation on that.
want to redo it because this game also features like full voice acting. Like everything has been kind of redone. Like I don't know, in the Japanese side, it's like oh, everyone talks now, even
Yeah.
Ado talks. So I think this is the best version of the game from what I played. So I just think that maybe XSEED, they probably had to bring back all these actors and had to do all of it if they want to localize this. So maybe they don't want to touch it because I don't know. It's probably some messy situation, I guess.
Now I have an idea.
Sure,
You should offer to voice Adolf for them for free.
I will offer any video game voice acting for free. I'll even do it for Ace Attorney for you. You want voice acting for it?
I didn't realize you had played the remaster. Is remaster the correct term for this?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
Okay.
it's the
Yeah,
same
it's pretty
game,
much Ozen
really.
Felghana with new art and turbo mode.
And music selection. You could select the old version of the soundtrack if you wanted.
Yeah.
So
I still think turbo mode in this game is a funny addition.
it's like, why would you want a turbo
Because
mode? You're gonna get
It's
fucking
so fast
murdered.
already.
You're gonna get fucking murdered. It's like there's a million projectile. I'm gonna fast forward, and you basically get like 2 shot in.
I want to see someone beat the strongest foe or whatever his name is on turbo mode.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Oh,
You
man.
go to the pho restaurant, the strongest pho.
I'm trying to remember the final boss's name. It starts with a G. Anyways,
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I just memory shoots a lot of fireballs.
it's a demon,
and you gotta reflect it back at
and
him.
it's a lot of like bullet hellish dodging. So do
I
it.
think
should
I think that's the greatest final boss Falcom has ever designed. In my opinion.
I know people who share that exact opinion.
yeah.
Who are basically
Yeah.
like, it must suck to be Falcom and have to try to one up Isos and Felghana final boss because they haven't done it yet.
No,
I will say the East 10 final boss got pretty close. That was a damn good final boss.
Yeah,
Damn
that
good
is
final
actually
boss.
one of my favorite, but I still prefer the strongest pho.
They should add 3 times turbo mode to East 1 and then do the Dark Fact boss fight.
You know how
Ugh.
I beat Dark Fact is I just keep going random on Nightmare and just hope that he dies. That's it. I don't know.
I mean, that's how it is.
I don't have any strategy or patterns on how to beat him. I just move at random and just pray that he dies. It'll eventually work in like an hour.
Demented ass DVD screensaver boss. That's just how Dark Fact is. He's literally the personification of that like
Yes,
screensaver for yeah, it's like
the DVD logo bouncing around the screen. Yes.
Well, that covers us for all the news posts.
I think did you skip
this
the Spike Chunsoft sales?
I was going I was going to ask earlier because I was like, well nobody else has mentioned it. So
I very commonly skip stuff and then I go back to it usually like I did earlier this podcast, but I must have forgot on that one. So
anyways, Shiren the Wanderer, the Mystery of Serpent Coil Island, released in Japan, and it has sold just in Japan 200,000 units, which is pretty good.
That's really good for that series.
It's the fastest selling Shiren the Wanderer ever, and it's on track to beat out the best selling like single SKU of any of the series games in Japan because it's very supply constrained. So this is good news because it means that we are definitely going to get a Shiren the Wanderer 7, and also it might give them leverage to say, hey, you should make us you should let us make another Pokemon Mystery Dungeon because very clearly this type of game is very popular in Japan now.
Shiren fans have been starving for a new Shiren game for a long time.
Yeah. It's like I said a few weeks back when I was playing through Shiren 4, I found out, wait a second, what do you mean Shiren 4 and 5 came out the same fucking year? It's like no wonder sales might have fallen off a cliff if they were releasing them so quickly, like next to each other like that.
But yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how well because it's releasing at the end of the month here in the West.
I hope I'm wrong. It's gonna bomb in the West. It's
a bad time to. I say it's a bad time to release games, but then you have recent releases that like have sold,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
well. I don't know
Yeah.
how that'll translate to Shiren.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It's like if I was going to be charitable, I was convinced that Relink was going to bomb. I did not expect it to do as well as it's done in both Japan and on PC. So it's like, okay, we got the good ending for that three-way showdown where all three of the late January, early February RPGs have managed to do well, which is a goddamn miracle, honestly. But I don't think that Shiren the Wanderer can square up against Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and come out on top. I don't see that happening.
It's just one of those. It's like maybe no one has any money left after that, and they're saving all their remaining money for FF7 Rebirth. So my friends like, yeah, I've spent fucking $300 on video games the past X amount of time frame, and there's too many games. I'm like, yep.
Yeah, count me in that same boat. I bought both for the limited editions for Unicorn Overlord and the Perception Reload.
Yeah, I need to put my pre-order down for the limited edition for PS5, though waiting for invoice to go through. But yeah.
All right, now I think that's everything, unless I missed anything else.
What's up for next week in terms of releases?
Dragon
I
Quest
think
Builders for PC.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Astlibra
the one they
DLC.
just announced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Don't Nod game comes out before. I think it comes out before the end of next week.
Yeah, 13th.
Let's see. We're
Man,
recording this
yeah.
on the 10th, coming out on the 13th. So yeah, we'll be
Vanisher.
talking about that. Mhm. And then it's probably going to be pretty regular new release cadence as we've drilled down and beat that horse dead for the next several weeks. But yeah. All of the news posts that we talked about, including the CD Projekt current status, all of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, final information from that trailer. Again, spoiler warning on those are up on the website at rpgsite.net. You can find RPG Site on all the social media platforms. Just search for RPG Site and you should be able to find us. Didn't give these a shout out yet, but of course, all the recent games, Persona 3 Reload, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. We have obviously the reviews and the coverage for those games in terms of guides up on the site as well. So go ahead and give those a look at if you are currently playing through those. And leave us a comment if you're following those guides and they're either helpful or you found something that needed clarification, because we're always willing. We like to see if they've been helpful or if there's anything that we need to tweak or fix. We're always willing to jump right on that. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. Also, join our Discord, discord.gg/RPG site. But until you hear from us next time, stay safe and take care. We'll talk to y'all later.
Now to describe the FF7 Rebirth final trailer in detail.